At some point, many people start noticing a strange and uncomfortable pattern in their lives. Different relationships, different people, different situations, but somehow, the same type of person keeps showing up. The manipulative one. The one who slowly crosses boundaries. The one who drains your energy while pretending everything is normal. At first, it feels like bad luck, but after it happens a few times, a deeper question starts to appear. Why do toxic people keep choosing me? Why does it seem like you attract people who take advantage, manipulate, or disrespect you? If you've ever asked yourself that question, this video might finally give you the psychological explanation behind it. Because toxic people don't choose randomly. And the reasons they are drawn to certain people often have less to do with weakness, and more to do with specific behavioral signals most people don't even realize they're sending. 1. Toxic people are extremely good at reading behavior. One of the biggest misconceptions about toxic personalities is that they randomly target people. In reality, many manipulative individuals are highly skilled at reading subtle social signals. They pay attention to how people react to discomfort, disagreement, or pressure. For example, imagine someone makes a slightly inappropriate comment or ignores something important to you. Some people will immediately respond, "That made me uncomfortable." Others will stay quiet to avoid creating tension. To a healthy person, this might just look like kindness or patience. But to a manipulative person, it sends a very different message. It suggests that pushing boundaries might be possible without consequences. Over time, toxic personalities begin to recognize these patterns very quickly, not because they consciously plan it like a strategy, but because they have learned, through experience, which behaviors allow them to maintain control. 2. Small boundary violations are usually the first test. Toxic relationships rarely begin with obvious manipulation. In fact, the early stages often feel completely normal. The first signs usually appear in very small ways. A joke that feels slightly disrespectful. A broken promise that is quickly excused. A situation where your needs are ignored, but you decide not to say anything. Individually, these moments seem minor. But psychologically, they function as tests. When someone crosses a small boundary and nothing happens, it creates new expectations in the relationship. The brain learns something important. This behavior is tolerated. From that moment on, the boundaries often expand. What started as a small inconvenience slowly becomes a pattern of disrespect. And because the changes happen gradually, people often don't realize how much the dynamic has shifted until much later. 3. Highly empathetic people are often targeted. Another reason toxic personalities gravitate towards certain individuals is empathy. People who are compassionate, patient, and emotionally aware are often very good at understanding others. They can see when someone is struggling. They try to interpret behavior instead of judging it immediately. While this is normally a healthy and valuable trait, toxic individuals sometimes take advantage of it. When harmful behavior occurs, empathetic people often respond by asking questions like, maybe they had a bad day. Maybe they're going through something difficult. Instead of recognizing manipulation early, they try to understand it, and that extra patience gives toxic personalities more time to establish control in the relationship. 4. Some people have a strong desire to maintain harmony. Another psychological factor is conflict avoidance. Many people grow up believing that maintaining peace is more important than expressing discomfort. They learn to stay quiet during arguments. They prioritize keeping relationships stable rather than challenging problematic behavior. On the surface, this creates the image of someone who is calm and easygoing. But toxic personalities often interpret this very differently. To them, someone who avoids confrontation may appear easier to control, not because that person is weak, but because they hesitate to create conflict. And manipulation thrives in environments where conflict is consistently avoided. 5. Early experiences can shape what feels normal. One of the most powerful influences on relationship patterns is familiarity. Our earliest emotional experiences teach the brain what relationships are supposed to feel like. If someone grows up in an environment where love is mixed with unpredictability, criticism, or emotional distance. Their brain may unconsciously associate those patterns with familiarity. Later in life, when they meet someone with similar emotional dynamics, the situation may feel strangely comfortable, not necessarily healthy, but recognizable. Psychologists often observe that people sometimes repeat relational patterns not because they enjoy them, but because the brain gravitates toward what it already understands. 6. Toxic people often lose interest when boundaries appear, something many people don't realize. Toxic personalities are usually not interested in strong, clearly defined boundaries. When someone calmly but firmly communicates their limits, the dynamic changes immediately. Suddenly, the relationship requires mutual respect, accountability, balance. And for someone who thrives on control, that environment becomes far less appealing. In many cases, toxic individuals will simply move on to someone else who feels easier to influence. Not because the person who set boundaries changed dramatically, but because the power dynamic they were looking for disappeared. The truth is that toxic people exist in every social environment. You cannot control who approaches you, who shows interest, or who enters your life. But you can control what behavior is allowed to remain. Recognizing the patterns that attract manipulative personalities is not about blaming yourself. It's about understanding how relationships are shaped by boundaries, communication, and emotional awareness. Because the moment you start recognizing those patterns, you also gain the ability to change them. If this video helped you understand something you've experienced before, leave a like. And if you want more insights about human behavior, relationships, and psychological patterns, subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes the most powerful change in your life begins with understanding the patterns you didn't know you were repeating.